Well, welcome to another episode of The Art of Feminine Negotiation. I'm your host, Cindy Watson, and I'm really excited to introduce you today to Peggy McColl. She's an absolute powerhouse, and we're going to be talking about negotiating the mindset and habits to live your dream life. So welcome, Peggy. It's great to have you here.
It is so great to be with you. I was really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I can't wait for this discussion. And for those of you who don't know Peggy, she has worked with and been endorsed by some of the most renowned experts in the personal development field. I mean, we're talking Bob Proctor, Jim Rohn, Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Marie Forleo, and more. You know, everybody who's anybody has endorsed Peggy. And she's a wealth, business, and manifestation expert, which really piqued my interest. And she helps people manifest results that they desire both personally and professionally. And the proof is in the pudding in her personal manifestation success. She is like the New York Times bestselling author. She has 21 books that have been translated into 37 languages and sold in over 100 countries. So get a pad and pen because there are going to be all kinds of gems dropping. I have no doubt about that. So tell me, Peggy, how'd you come to study personal development? Obviously, you've met and been endorsed by some pretty heavy hitters.
Yeah, I've been very blessed in my journey. But I was 19 at the time when I was dragged, kicking and screaming all the way, I'm sure, to a motivational seminar, which I really didn't think I needed to go to because I had a BA, and that's not a Bachelor of Arts degree. I had a bad attitude. And so I ended up in this seminar, and it was Bob Proctor who was the speaker. I was working for a company in Toronto, and they hired Bob to do this kickoff event to get the company going in the right winning direction. And I showed up just as the event was going to start, thinking I'll just slide into the back. And my first opportunity, I'm sneaking out. But there weren't any seats in the back. There was only one in the front and the center. So they, waved me over. I'd come and sit here. So I sat there, and then Bob literally woke me up. Yeah. And he quoted Vernon Howard, and he said, "You can't escape from a prison unless you know you're in one." And that was my reality check. That's when I realized that, oh my God, I was in a prison of my own making. Yeah. And I just decided I'm going to commit to, turning my life around. And that's what I did. So it was 40 some odd years ago. It was a long time ago.
Wow.
But I've been very blessed to, be in that study for all these years.
Yeah. Well, and that's a nice leading because we often hear that if we want our life to change, we need to change. So what advice would you give? Like, what's the most effective way to start? I think some people just feel overwhelmed about how do I kickstart that process?
Oh my God, you're so right about that. I have an embroidered handkerchief in my drawer here that says, "If you want your life to change, you must change."
That's so funny.
Yeah, funny you should say that, because that's actually the beginning of my 19th book called Savvy Wisdom, which was my first fiction. And that's really, it starts, I wrote this book, my 19th book, because I switched to fiction because people want to be entertained more than they want to be educated. Yeah. And so I wrote it based on my life. Like, how did I start? What did I do? Yeah. And it was it. The start is really in the realization that, there's room for improvement. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It just means that, if you want your life to be better, well, you have to change. Yeah. and I think it's a very strong thing to do. So what do you need to change? Well, you need to change your mindset, essentially. And I think that really, really starts and ends with, it doesn't end, just from starting with studying, like studying success, listening to your show as an example, reading the books and of course, applying the materials that you're learning. So I think it really comes down to a commitment. Like, I decided in January 1979 that I'm going to dedicate my life to this study. Yeah. And what did that mean? It meant changing my habits and changing my daily habits and making a choice. And one of the things I did was, the first decision was, I'm going to study every day. And that's where I really started, was studying every day. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's a great answer. And there's so many resources there now. I mean, I think a lot more now than ever were available before. And I know, Peggy, you're a big believer that sometimes our darkest moments can really help us tap in, or at least reveal our greatest strengths. So I'd love if you could share a little bit about the secret to that and share your experience with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everybody goes through challenging times. It doesn't matter where you are or who you are, or which planet you're on. or which part of the planet. We're all going to go through challenges. And, part of the reason why I wrote Savvy Wisdom, and Savvy is a name, by the way, it's not spelled incorrectly.
Actually, I didn't dare ask.
Savvy is actually the name of the character that the main character meets in the book. So I created this girl named Sophie who meets this guy named Savvy, this brilliant, wise billionaire man who just shows up in her life. That's Bob Proctor. So this is based on meeting Bob Proctor. But the reason why I mention it is I was suicidal as a teenager. Like, I didn't want to live. And so obviously I did choose to live because I'm sitting here talking to you right now. But that was a dark moment. And so I know what that pain feels like, that emotional pain of not even wanting to live. And so it became a gift because I understand what that pain is. I decided I'm going to incorporate a company. I'm going to help other people get out of their emotional pain, whether it's through books or webinars or videos or classes, whatever it happens to be. And so that's one example. And another current example just occurred just a couple of years ago when I had been diagnosed with metastatic cancer. Jesus. And that was quite the experience. Wow. I had this lump show up in my neck, and I went to the doctor and they said, it's nothing, come back in 3 months. And, something told me it's more than nothing. And so I ended up paying for a clinic and went and got checked out a few days later, only to discover it was cancer. It was all through my neck and in my tongue. And so that could be considered a dark moment.
Yeah, but, you think?
Right? Yeah. So I immediately just started thinking, okay, what's great about this? Where are the blessings in this? I never, ever, ever went to why me, poor me, boo-hoo. Never went there. I just thought, okay, what's great about this? And one of the blessings was my family. Like, oh my goodness, did my husband ever step up? My sister step up. Daughter-in-law and son stepped up. I mean, the support, my friends, especially my friend Jane, like they really stepped up. So you get to realize, like, of course, I know I'm very blessed to have my husband, but it just really shone a greater light on that and, who they are and how they show up in my life, but also help me understand what someone else feels like when they go through something like that. Yeah. And so I wrote the sequel to Savvy Wisdom 2, where the main character gets diagnosed with cancer and, what she went through and how she healed herself, because that's exactly what I did. I just healed myself. And when I went through the treatment for this, it was pretty brutal. I mean, it really was, because it's radiation, like your head strapped to a table, you got this mask on and they're radiating you. And I got so sick, I was hospitalized. But while I was in the hospital bed, because I'm sort of stuck there, I couldn't even get up and walk. I just listened. I just programmed my mind with only great things and healthy things. And Bob Proctor actually made me a customized audio meditation. And I listened to that over and over and over again. I know it was so wonderful of him to do that. And so, it was a real dark moment that went on for several months. And, there were so many blessings in the experience, and I came out of it and I feel I'm stronger as a result. And it just gave me another depth of understanding of what, challenges people go through when they get something like that. I can relate, I can understand. Not that I have to go through all of these horrific experiences to understand what it feels like, but it certainly has allowed me to share in that gift of what occurred by, creating tools and videos and books.
Yeah. Well, gosh, first, thank you for, being so vulnerable and sharing that with us. I think we all learn more and more deeply when we share and are vulnerable with each other. So I thank you for that. And there was so much packed in there, Peggy, as well. When you talked about that intuition piece, I'm a big believer. I mean, part of my Art of Feminine Negotiation is that, the I in my RFIT model stands for intuition. So the fact that you trusted your intuition to get that second opinion. But also, I love this idea about the gift of gratitude. I think it is so often overlooked, and it is such a simple and profound shift. So I'd love, I was going to ask you, what's the greatest lesson you've learned about transformation? You're already dropping nuggets about that. So I'd love you to have more, obviously gratitude, I assume, would be one, and positivity when you talk about surrounding ourselves with that positive energy. What else have been some of the lessons you've learned about transformation?
I love that question. I really do. And the reason is because I love the answer. And here's the answer. The answer is this. This is the greatest lesson I've ever learned in the past 40 some odd years of studying personal development is that decide what you would love. And of course, set a goal that's so exciting and exhilarating. It might even scare you at the same time, but set a goal that you have no earthly idea how you're ever going to accomplish. Set a goal, fall in love with it, but understand this. And this is the most valuable lesson. You do not have to know how you're going to get there. You don't have to know how. You just have to decide what it is. You have to own it and feel it as if it's in your life now. And you're going to attract it. Doesn't mean you're not going to be doing any work, but you're going to attract everything requisite for the fulfillment of that goal. That's the greatest lesson I ever learned. So I've done things along the way, what some people might call crazy things. Like I bought a house in 1995. I went and signed my name, with a pen on a legally binding contract. I didn't have any money. I actually took a cash advance on my Visa to put the check in with the offer. Now, I'm not suggesting people do that. There's more to the story here, but I had no clue how I was going to pay for that house. I had just gone through a divorce. My son was 2. I was a single mom, but I had a goal, and that was to own a home, and not just any home, a beautiful home. And I found one, and I went and bought it. And I ended up attracting all the money to pay for it from a stock transaction, which I had never been involved in the stock market before. But that's what happened. Now, would that have ever unraveled if I, had not made the decision?
Absolutely.
And I didn't know how I was going to do that. And most people would just stop themselves. They wouldn't make the decision or make the move because they think they have to know how, all the steps. You don't have to know.
Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh, as you're talking, I was smiling because we have so many parallels. Like for me, I got melanoma, and it was like a huge wake up call for me on this. And same thing, we made this giant leap of faith by our friends all thought we'd gone completely crazy. And I'm curious because for me, part of it was that shift from a scarcity. I grew up in a low rental apartment complex. So, a strong scarcity mindset for a long time. And then I just decided I'm embracing an abundance mindset. And I just believed the money would come, right? So how much do you believe in that abundance versus scarcity?
Totally.
Thoughts?
I have goosebumps. I've had goosebumps so much today talking with you. Oh my God, like absolutely. I was raised in a very, very, poor environment. My parents did have a house, but it was 600 square feet. I think my walk-in closet is bigger than what their house is. I do know that, I had to share a bedroom, and now there were 6 of us in that house. There were my 2 older brothers, my sister, and myself. And I had to share a bedroom with my 2 brothers and my sister. And it was itty bitty. I mean, little itty bitty room. We had bunk beds on one side for my brothers, and then a tiny, you could go sideways down, and there was a bed there. It was like a 3/4 size bed for my sister and I to sleep in, and that was it. And, so same thing, raised in a very, poverty household, poverty-minded household. Understandably, that's where they came from, right?
Yeah.
But I never accepted that. And, and I think this is in everyone, there's a desire within all of us for more. It's natural. But a lot of people put the lid on it and they squish it and put it to the side or whatever. And so that desire was always there. And I just thought, I'm going to find a way, to create, success in my life. And now I'm a multimillionaire. What's interesting? All 4 of my parents' kids all became multiple millionaires.
That's
all 4 of the
Yes.
kids. My brother, my brother's passed away, but before he passed away, he was a millionaire. He ended up getting cancer as well. Yeah. And then my other brother, he ended up making like truckloads of money and stopped working at 40. He hasn't worked since 40 years of age. That's amazing. My sister was far more cautious with it. But anyways, the point is anybody can do it, but it's the mind that we have to work with. This is our tool, and we all have it. We don't have to go anywhere and get it. We already have everything that we need.
So good. And I want for our listeners to really put a pin as well, because those of you who know me I always say our mindset, negotiating our mindset is our first and most important negotiation. And you'll notice that Peggy goes for the stuff that she wants. She doesn't have that one day mindset. When this happens, I'll do that. Or when these stars all align, I'll do that. She sets that goal and then she starts stepping into it. So really an important mindset difference. And I'd love if you could share, Peggy, I read somewhere that you've got a special demonstration about the destructive impact of negativity, and you use a glass of water and a dark liquid and a spoon. I was so intrigued. So if you can share it with us, that'd be awesome. Tell us how that works.
It's interesting you ask about that, because I first saw that from Bob, like back in the 1980s. And when I was 3, anyways, just kidding on that. But, he has seen me do that demonstration. He's like, oh my God, that's so good. I said, Bob, I learned it from you.
That's so funny.
So he would take a glass, like a full glass of water, and then another glass with coffee in it. And he'd have a spoon and he would say, this glass of water represents a very positive mind, a very clear thinking, goal oriented kind of mind, very, very happy. And then the glass of water represents a very dark mind, a very negative mind, somebody who's all consumed in negativity and they're constantly contaminating and poisoning their results. That was me before I, got into these materials. And so what happens is when someone has that we'll call it darkness, but the old programming, the negative programming, scarcity is a great example, and they start to add the good in. So what Bob would do is he'd take the spoon of water and he'd put it in the coffee and he'd say, okay, then they want to add more. They read another book, they go to another seminar and they put the water in. What happens is with this glass of coffee, when you start adding spoonsful of water, whatever,
I'm with you.
yeah, you're with me. That you don't see the change. You don't see the change. And this is what happens. And people get pissed off and they're like, oh, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. But it does work. It just takes time. So if you keep adding and keep adding and keep adding, ultimately what happens with this glass of coffee is it becomes clear. And the more you add, the more you add, the more you pour in, ultimately becomes very clear. But it takes a lot of work. But the interesting part of this is if you imagine I'm holding a glass of coffee and I have my glass of water and I take a spoonful of the coffee and I put it in here, you'll instantly see a change in the water. Instantly. That's how destructive negativity can be. And I remember Bob said this years ago. He said, it only takes a little bit of poison to kill.
Yeah. Oh, what a great visual. I love that. Actually, I haven't seen that done before. I think that's a powerful one. Now, what are some things that you think successful people do habitually that unsuccessful people don't? And you probably mentioned a few of them already here, but just to really put a pin in that.
I'm laughing at that because I did a video this morning on that exact.
Oh my gosh, this is bizarre.
Like goosebumps again. Like, oh my God. Yeah, because I woke up this morning. The first thing that I do, I woke up about 5:18. Now I don't jump out of bed at 5:18, but I woke up at 5:18 and I put my earbuds in. And I start listening to my Power Life script. Now, Power Life script is something I created in the 90s. And this is a technique that I came out with. And the reason why I came out with this technique is because we attract based on how we're feeling, right? I know you know that. And so we've got to impress these ideas into our subconscious mind until they become a part of who we are. And so in the 90s, when I realized that I needed to get better at impressing the positivity into my subconscious mind on a consistent basis, so that my dominant way of being, which is how you attract, is only in harmony with what I desire. So I wrote out a script of how I chose my life to be in the present tense, as if everything's already there. Like that house as an example. I own it. It's mine. Enjoy traveling, first class, whatever. Just describe the whole thing, the business and all of that. And I would listen to it over and over and over again. I've been doing that since the 90s. So almost 30 years I've been listening to my Power Life script. So every day when I wake up, in go the earbuds and I start listening. This morning, I listened to my Power Life script 18 times, 13 minutes in length. And I do that every single day, every day. Now, I know a lot of people won't do it, or they think, oh, I don't have time to do that. I laid in bed for 2 hours. Okay. That didn't take away from my day. And then I get up and now while I'm, moving around the house, getting coffee ready, doing things, I'm still listening. I'm still listening. I take my doggies for a walk. I'm listening. Like I'm just constantly pouring it in. If I finish a call and I'm, going to do something in the kitchen, maybe make lunch or whatever, I plug the earbuds in. I keep extra sets. I always have headphones. If I go to the hairdresser and the color is, whatever setting on my hair, I'm listening. If I'm at the dentist office, I'm listening. I listen as much as possible. And I do that because I know the positive impact. I've had so many people tell me of, crazy things that they've manifested by using their Power Life script. But I know, most people won't do it. We're habitual beings. We tend to get into the habitual way of being, and people don't break those old patterns. But if you're willing to do that, well, you can make some real positive change in your life.
That's amazing. So obviously that I would say is one of your non-negotiable habits that you sort of commit to daily. Any other tips you have for people on things that you'd suggest they make a non-negotiable habit to kickstart how they show up?
Yeah, you know that there's a statement that's in, I think it's in either Robert Collier or Ernest Holmes' books. I always get these two guys mixed up, that basically says that it doesn't matter so much the thing that you're doing or the technique, whether it's visualization, gratitude statement, affirmations, mirror work, listening to a Power Life script. It's not so much what you're doing. What matters most, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a friend, we were delivering a seminar, a live seminar just before COVID started down in Florida. And we're on stage and we're talking about all these techniques and all these tools. And he said, I'm doing it right now. And we're talking about the importance of being in harmony with what you desire, feeling it, right? Like just feeling that gratitude of knowing it's done, it's done. Like I'm already a New York Times bestselling author. That was before, you know, but before I became one, I was living as if, you know, constantly. And he said, I'm doing it now. And I said, what are you doing right now? He said, I'm in the, you know, in the spirit of my goal right now. I'm in harmony with it. And he's on stage with me. And it's like, wow, that's so good.
Yeah.
So, you know, you could, you know, whatever technique works for you. Not everybody loves visualizing. Not everybody loves meditating. Not everybody loves doing affirmations. And there are a lot of people who do affirmations, but they don't bring in the intensity of the emotion into it. So it's like, might as well pick up the phone book and read that, because it's going to do about the same. Right. So that's really what matters most is the feeling state. And that's why I love, like, we're taking in information all the time, like through our senses. Like I'm taking in information right now. You're taking in information, what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what we're smelling, what we're tasting, what we're touching. And so you want to be surrounding yourself. Like I have all throughout my office, visuals, right? Messages, words, you know, on signs, gratitude or blessed or joy or whatever. Love life, as you can see behind my head. And you just want to, you know, continue to remind yourself of all, you know, all these wonderful things, and really notice, like, if you find yourself out of alignment, like, oh, why is this not happening to me? Out of alignment. If you're feeling like, oh, why do I even bother getting up every day? Out of alignment, you know, fearful, out of alignment. And it's not that you won't get out of alignment. You will. People do. But you want to create those techniques. Like I have this little wooden thing that I keep on my desk. This is one of my most favorite questions to ask yourself. What would I love? Especially if you go out of alignment. When I had bought that house back in 95 and I didn't have the money to pay for it, I mean, I was thinking I was nuts. You know, I didn't need to tell other people what I was doing. They would have confirmed it. So when I started to feel the fear, I just say, Peggy, what would you love? Okay, I'd love to own this house. What's that feel like? Feels great. Okay, go straight to feeling. And this was like a direct command I'd give myself every single time. And that became my, you know, my way of being. And it's something that I still use to this day. Here's another great question to ask yourself. Now that my dream is fulfilled, how do I feel? Or even just knowing this, your success is absolutely guaranteed. Yes. And what's the other one? I live in the joyous expectancy of the best. So I made these little wooden.
I love that.
I give them to some of my clients, have them at my events, and it's just another wonderful reminder. So surround yourself with reminders so that keep your, you know, keep impressing your subconscious mind, but keep you in the aligned state.
Yeah. I love that you've got those questions right. I'm looking around this room here. I've got imagine, wish, laugh, got a few of them around, but I like having the full blown questions. That takes it to another level altogether. And when you talked about alignment, it reminded me too, because one of the things I really talk about a lot is integrity. And people often assume that's just moral integrity, but the actual Latin root of that is like being whole. It's about being in alignment with yourself. And when we do things that are not, you know, in accordance with our values, it pulls us out of integrity, out of that alignment piece. So I think such an important message. And you've talked about feelings and emotion. I think a lot of people, especially when we talk about negotiations, you know, people are like, emotion has no place in negotiations. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you know, emotion, everything comes down to emotion at some level. So I'd love, what are your thoughts on what role emotion plays? And obviously you've negotiated a very successful life for yourself, both personally and professionally. So what are your thoughts on emotion and negotiations?
Oh, absolutely. And even as you're asking the question, I think about, like, my husband's very left brain analytical. And, you know, there was one time we were in Florida and my mom had been diagnosed with cancer, a lot of cancer in the family. The gene is there, but It is what it is. Anyways, my husband and I took my mom on her bucket list trip, and she was napping one afternoon, and we had rented this house that was backing onto a golf course in a really nice area of Florida, and she was napping. So Denny and I went for a walk, and we're walking along, and there's a for sale sign on a house, and I stopped, and he's holding my hand, right? So I'm stopped. He's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, this house is for sale." And he said, "So?" And I said, "Well, wouldn't it be nice to have a house in Florida?" And he said to me, he said, "Well, we're not in the market to buy a house in Florida." I said, "Well, let's get in the market to buy a house in Florida." Now, you got to understand this kind of conversation with my husband, like you and I we get on like a house of we're this, from the same mother, or I don't know, like definitely
totally agree.
Spirit here. And so my husband's like, "What are you doing?" Now, what would most people do? Probably end up with a fight in their partner on the road, right?
Yeah.
You don't let me go for my dream, whatever. And I just, where does emotion play? Certainty is a big emotion that I have. Like, I know that if I want that house, I can buy that house. Well, you know what? I bought that house.
That's awesome.
I bought it that day.
Oh my gosh.
And I wasn't looking for my husband. Oh, I have another story about that. Actually, you're going to like this one. And so, how does negotiation play? I just stayed in certainty. I did not allow his way of being. And I didn't try and make him wrong.
Yeah.
Or try and criticize him or argue with him or fight against him. I didn't do that at all. I just, got him emotionally involved in the idea of the outcome. Honey, just think about how great that would be, when it's January up in, Ottawa. Freaking cold, man. Like, we can be down here at our house. You can go out in the golf course. We're on the 7th hole. And so I got him to fall in love with the idea.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, where's the money going to come from?" Well, wherever it is now, because that's, abundance mentality, right?
Yes.
And that's something I've learned.
Yes.
And I think he was like probably scratching his hair or pulling it out. I don't know, one or the other. And within 2 months, I closed the deal on that house and I paid for it with cash.
Yeah.
And we sold it later for a profit because we weren't using it enough. But, did I negotiate that? Yeah. And another time, I remember my husband and I was in the market. He wasn't. I wanted a waterfront place because, like you, I love waterfront and have been raised, with a cottage up in the Muskokas all my life. And so I decided I'm buying a waterfront place. And I found this place that was for sale by owner. And I didn't know if I'd like it or not. I wasn't sure. So I negotiated with the guy to move into it, do a real estate deal. But if in 8 months I didn't want it, I could leave.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I love it.
And so I paid him an occupancy fee. And I said, "Okay, if I don't like this in 8 months," because I wanted to try it on for size. It was empty. So he agreed. Well, it turned out that the place on the end of the road, which was on a point, like just completely surrounded by water,
gorgeous,
was for sale.
Yeah.
And I loved the piece of land. I used to walk down there and I got to know the guy that was selling it. His name was Art. And the place was a dump. I mean, it really needed a bulldozer, like to come in and just, plow this place down.
Sounds like our
place. My husband was not open to this idea at all. Like, first of all, "I don't want a project," is what he would say. Well, who's to say you're going to have a project? I'll hire somebody. And so Denny and I ended up having a negotiation discussion one day. And I said to him, "Well, what if I got the price down to this? Would you be willing?" And he goes, "Yeah, I guess." So he went out fishing. I walked down.
You got to work.
I got to work. He didn't know I was going to do this. So I walked down the street and Art and I stood on the deck and we negotiated the deal. And I was not willing to pay that price because I thought he had a ridiculous price on it. And I wasn't willing. So Art says, "So you're ready to make me an offer?" And I said, "Art, your price is too high. You know it. So, I don't think so." And I just wanted him to think I was willing to just walk away. And he goes, "Well, what are you thinking it's worth?" So I went in with a lowball price, which was less than what I was willing to pay. And I negotiated and we came up with a price. We shook hands. We had a deal. So my husband comes in from fishing. I said, "I bought the place on the point." And he's like, "Oh my God." And
that is so good.
But you know what I did, Cindy? I absolutely believed that he was going to love it. And in my Power Life script, I had written and recorded that my husband was thanking me, that he was thanking me. And so when we bought that place, we completely renovated it. Everything about it. We totally renovated it. I ended up selling it because I thought it was too small and we found out we couldn't build the place I wanted. anyways, we sat on the deck. I also bought a swim platform right on the water, so you could just see water everywhere. And he would turn to me and just say, "Thank you." I said, "What are you thinking
Oh
me
my
for?"
gosh, that's so
Yeah.
funny. I
It was
love
just
it.
like, I would smile because I'm thinking, I scripted this. I
Yes.
scripted this.
And I really
So
want to amplify for our listeners a couple of things that you're hearing here. One is certainty. And I love that answer, Peggy. I've never, in all the interview, I've done like 150 of these, I think, or somewhere in that ballpark. Nobody has actually spoke to that. And I think it is so fundamental, right? That sense, showing up with an absolute sense of certainty. And that's not to say you won't be flexible about as things come, but it's a beautiful combination of certainty. And also, I think your story really illustrates the importance of creativity in a negotiation, right? Most people wouldn't think of negotiating an occupancy fee. Let me a tester. Nobody would make the ask because they wouldn't be prepared to get out of their head on that. So I love that.
yeah.
Love
For sure. And even when I bought that house in Florida, I remember going to the realtor's office, and my husband was with me, and he said to me, "What are you wanting to offer?" And I told him the price, and he just laughed, and he goes, "No, seriously, what are you willing to offer?" And I said, "That's the price." And he said, "I'm not even going to write it up on paper."
Yeah.
And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I'll call the guy and see if he's even interested in entertaining an offer." So he said, "I don't want to waste anybody's time." And he was kind of arrogant, a little bit arrogant, but it is what it is. Don't let it bother me. So I can hear him in the other office. He's calling the guy, and he's on the phone. He's going, "Yeah, I got this live one in the other room here." And it's like, "I can hear you." "I got this live one in the other room." "Yeah, and she wants to put an offer in on your place." Uh-huh. And I can hear him go quiet a little bit, and then he gives him the price, and then you hear quiet again. He goes, "Seriously? You are? Okay, I'll put it in paper." And he comes into me, he goes, "You got a deal." I mean, he did not think the guy was going to go.
Clearly. Yeah.
But it was empty. The house was empty. And this is the thing, like when you think in any negotiation, you each have an outcome that you desire. Now, it might not be the price. I tend to go in with a low ball offer, but what have you got to lose?
Absolutely. I love that. And making the ask. And I think, as women in particular, we've been so conditioned not to do that. So I love that advice. And I love that you've got all of these positive outcomes that you can share. And I just can't believe how fast our time has gone together here, Peggy. We're going to have to get you back again to do another, because there's about 100 directions I'm thinking we could be taking any of these conversations. Just love it. So I normally love to end by asking, what's one of the greatest mindset shifts you've ever had in your life? It doesn't have to be on this or even your area of expertise. What would you say?
I would say it was a mind shift change in believing that I was not worthy of love to believing that I am worthy of love. Because that's what I realized when I went through my divorce. Now, I've been with Denny now 18 years, but my first husband, Charles, he's a wonderful man. And I'm grateful that we got married and grateful we got divorced. But I had a realization when I went through that there was something common in these relationship breakups over the years, and it was me. And so I thought, okay, what am I willing to look at? And I realized, okay, I'm willing to look at where my limitations are. And I realized I didn't believe I was worthy of love. Mm-hmm. And so I had to change that. And that's when I got on with the work of believing not only I'm worthy of love, but I'm already experiencing a loving, wonderful relationship, which I now have. You could ask my husband, Cindy, when you meet him, because you will one day.
Yes.
Every day. And we've been together over 18 years. Every day I give thanks for him. I tell him all the time how much I appreciate him. But that, the relationship that I now have, and I'm blessed, and it's been amazing the entire time we've been together, is only because of that shift in mindset, the go from believe unworthy to worthiness. And that can apply to money, success, career, anything.
Yeah. I love that. What a great note to end on. Because I think that, gosh, we are so held back in life by the limiting beliefs and the stories we carry around with ourselves. So yours was about being entitled to love, but we all carry those. So for our listeners out there, what a beautiful gift that Peggy's leaving you with. Take a look at the limiting stories that you're been telling yourself, the limiting beliefs that you're allowing to hold you back, and be willing to flip that script. I think that was gorgeous, gorgeous advice. So Peggy, tell them where they can find out more about you and all the fabulous work that you offer.
Perfect. Yeah, they go to my website, which is my name, PeggyMcColl.com. It's Peggymccoll.com.
And I will make sure to put that in the show notes as well. Peggy offers a wide range. Make sure to check out one of her 21 and growing, no doubt, books, and also programming that she offers as well. Much like me, she believes in negotiating your best life and has done some phenomenal work around that. So thanks so much for joining us today, Peggy. This has been so much fun.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure. Thank you. I look forward to coming back.
Oh, 100%. And I am sure for our listeners and our viewers out there, you guys have got loads of value from this episode. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already done that. And make sure to share this with anyone else that you think could get some value. And since we're talking about negotiating your best life and you've had all kinds of gems drop, everybody can definitely get some benefit to that approach to life. And before we sign off today, just wanted to share some ways that we can work together. If you're looking to upload your negotiation skills, I've got everything from online to group to signature, mastermind and VIP experiences to help you better leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve in life. And if that's of interest, just check out at artoffemininenegotiation.com if that's interesting to you. And speaking of Art of Feminine Negotiation, make sure to go grab a copy of my book as well. Check out Peggy's for sure, and check out my Art of Feminine Negotiation book. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can get more of what you want and deserve from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.